This is Dr. Z speaking to you from the year 20.23. This is Q-Shaft broadcast number 8. This time I will not answer questions about the preceding Q-Shaft. I must address the most important scientific issue of the 21st century, the grid. Some of you need to start analyzing the grid in your time, for I need some help in my time. Spend the next 14 years catching up to me. Professor Albert Einstein was very close to solving the theory of everything. He was led away from the solution by relying too much on mathematics and less on his thought experiments. Quantum physics and quantum mechanics are based on very small, measurable amounts of energy and/or mass. This means that space and time are quantized, for they must be if mass and energy are quantized. Ergo, there is a smallest amount of space that is non-divisible. I repeat, this implies that there is a smallest amount of space that is non-divisible. Quantized space is what makes up the grid. The grid is something like what scientists thought of as the ether in your past, what Michelson-Morley proved didn't exist. Essentially, they proved there was no medium in space within which waves propagated. In some other manner, electromagnetic waves travel through the quote-unquote vacuum of space. However, there is an ether-like entity, but is not quite what it was thought to be. The ether, or the grid as we call it, exists, but things do not flow through it. Early scientists thought of the ether as being similar to the air. When an object moves through the air, it moves the air aside, or the air moves as a wave. But when an object moves through the grid, the object does not move through it. The elements of the grid do not move aside. Let me show you with a diagram. Let's assume this grid spreads infinitely in all directions. Also assume that this red cube is a small particle, like an electron, moving through space, or the grid, if you will. Assume it moves one cube to the right. When an object moves through the grid, like this one moving to the right, the cube from which it leaves returns to the grid as a non-occupied section. Now consider this object as it moves all the way to the right, one cube at a time, until it reaches the edge. Each time it moves one cube to the right, the cube it left returns to the grid as an uncolored cube. Movement in the grid is defined by one cube taking up the characteristics of another. Two things you should notice. One is that the object can move only within the grid. Two is that the grid does not part or move aside to allow a particle to move through it. Keep in mind that sections of the grid can have many more sides than 6 sides of a cube, but these cubes work well for this demonstration. Again, the grid did not move or part. The colored cube and the one that it moved into did not move. One became the other. The essence of the colored cube, quote-unquote, moved from one cube to another. Normally, people would think that the colored cube would have pushed its way through the large cube, with the cube being pushed out of the opposite side of the large cube. But what does this imply? Unlike the old-fashioned ether, the grid does not allow a moving object to experience the grid. There is a medium in which all things move, but it's a medium that can never be experienced directly. Many philosophers think if something can't be experienced, then it doesn't exist. Not true. Energy, or mass, is the only thing that exists in the universe. Each section of the grid is a quantum of energy, or mass if you prefer. So that energy, or mass, any mass, no matter how small, is made up of a section or sections of the grid. Of course, this is the same as saying that all energy is made up of a section or sections of the grid. And we have that the smallest entity of matter is correspondingly the smallest cube in the grid. Not only is all mass made up of cubes of the grid, but cubes of the grid can combine or coalesce to make more massive particles or cubes, though the size of the cubes may or may not change. Two cubes of the grid can combine into the quote-unquote size of the smallest of the two cubes, leaving a section of the grid quote-unquote missing. Guess what that implies? I must stop at this point. I will continue this dialogue in the next Q-shaft. Meanwhile, I have been requested to show you that I have a recreational side. This is a 2010 retro party that we recently had at the compound. Finally, some of the chickens are coming home to roost in your time.